Welcome back to the Orange Appeal. I'm Kirti,
I'm Mahita.
And I'm Lauren.
and joining us today is Allison Sullivan, an education coordinator at the Ohio Wildlife Center. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to get to talk to you guys.
Yes. Okay, we just wanted to know first if you could tell us a little bit about what you do in your work.
Yeah, so my role at the Ohio Wildlife Center is I'm our education program coordinator. So I work with our education team that handles our 60-ish animal ambassadors. So what those animals are is basically animals that can't be released back out into the wild. So we have a variety of mammals and reptiles and birds that all came into our hospital for different reasons. Usually they're too injured or too used to people to be able to go back out into the wild. So then they come out with us on programs and we get to talk to the public from, little kids up to senior citizens about wild animals that are right in their backyard that they might either not know about or maybe have like a negative kind of astigmatism about them that we try to educate and promote just coexistence with our wild neighbors.
Wow. And I was also wondering, what inspired you to go into this career path and educate others on wildlife?
Yeah, so honestly, originally, I thought that I would want to do more like wildlife research, kind of behind the scenes things, but I had a class in college, my sophomore year, that actually worked with the Ohio Wildlife Center and worked with our education team and our animals. And just getting to talk to people about wildlife and kind of see people light up when they get to see these animals up close and personal really just kind of stuck with me and struck a chord with me and made me want to do it long term. So then I came on and I was a summer camp counselor. So I worked with our campers over the summer. And then I was a seasonal. So I got to assist with programs. And then I've been full time for the last few years.
Nice.
Yeah, based on what you said, it seems like you work a lot with our community. And so I had a question about how was it like to successfully and what strategies do you use to successfully involve the community in the center?
Yeah, so our education center is really a great spot for the public to get to come out and see lots of species that they wouldn't normally get to see.
Mhm.
Honestly, a lot of people's first interaction with us is going to actually be our wildlife hospital. So where these animals initially come into is Wildlife Hospital in the kind of Dublin, Columbus area, just off of Sawmill Road. And we see over 9,000 animals every year. So these are all animals that people are just finding either in their neighborhoods or on roadways when they're driving in the area, and people don't really know what to do with wildlife. So Ohio Wildlife Center is a great resource for people to know about for any sick or injured or orphaned animals that are in need of help. It's always an open door to take these animals that don't really have anywhere else to go. And we have a great vet staff that can take these animals in and assess them, figure out their needs, and we can admit them, give them food, water, medicine, time to heal, and hopefully release them back out into the wild. So that's kind of the best part of what our hospital staff gets to do is we get to see these animals that came in, and some of them are with us all winter long. We have these bats that can't be released right now in these freezing temperatures, and so they have to overwinter with us. And then once those temperatures get warm enough, we get to release all of these bats and see them go out and be successful out in the wild. So that's really kind of the long-term hope of what we get to do is to educate people and see these animals be successful. But we are just a great resource to know about for people in the Columbus area for sure.
And I remember at the beginning you were talking about this stigmatism towards some animals. Um, and I was just wondering what specific animals those are and why you think that there's stigma against those animals.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say when we go out on programs, a big one that we get reactions over is we do have some striped skunks as the ambassadors,
Oh
and those
yeah.
guys are hard to love. People, don't want them in their neighborhoods. People don't want them on their property, which I understand. They are very stinky neighbors to have. But letting people see them up close, our skunks do not have their scent glands anymore, so they can't spray. So there's basically no risk of people like getting close close to them, we can put people at ease with that. But talking about how they, even though they are smelly to be around, they have a role in our ecosystem still. That doesn't mean that they don't deserve to live and things like that. So just talking about how to coexist with wildlife and how, if you see a skunk, that does not mean that you have to like immediately get an exterminator and get them trapped and removed. But we can do things to coexist with them and we can kind of slowly encourage them to go somewhere else. Like if you're feeding outdoor cats, skunks are going to come and take that cat food as well. That's an easy food source for them. So just trying to talk to people about, yes, these animals exist. Yes, they deserve to exist. If you want them to not be close to you, here's some things that you can do to, encourage them to move somewhere else. So skunks are a big one. We also have snakes that a lot of people are afraid of.
Um,
People are always asking if we're bringing venomous snakes to them or if our snakes are going to bite them. And we have very, very nice snakes at the Ohio Wildlife Center, which is a great kind of way to introduce people to snakes to say, this snake has never bit anybody. He's so nice. He's so friendly. So people are usually willing to give them a chance once they are able to see them and see our connection with them as well. So skunks, snakes, we have a couple bats that some people are afraid of when they first see them, that kind of stuff.
and yeah, I think we're all familiar with the story, one of your recent stories about Tuxedo the skunk.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah, did you see that on Facebook?
Yeah, we did.
and so yeah, you
Yep.
make an excellent point about like the stigma surrounding skunks and how like Tuxedo shouldn't have to be like people shouldn't have to be worried about him, like he deserves a good home too.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Yeah, Tuxedo. I actually helped write that post about Tuxedo
Oh,
because I love him
really?
very, very much. So yeah, we're huge advocates for skunks, even though they're stinky neighbors. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
they, don't deserve to exist on Earth. They were here long before we were, and we're kind of going and building our homes on top of where their homes were. So we're just trying to encourage coexistence for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like your social media is able to bring a lot of awareness to many things that are going on with our animals. And I was wondering, what are some ways you like utilize like social media to spread awareness about animals and how we as a community can help them?
Yeah, so social media has definitely been something that over the past few years, especially like when COVID hit, we really just tried to utilize that as an educational resource. So a lot of people, just spend their evenings and their downtime just scrolling, and you want something that's gonna, catch someone's eye. So if you just have like a huge paragraph of just words that's like, here's a bunch of facts about animals, that's not necessarily gonna connect with people. But if you can put a little bit of emotion with it, so like with Tuxedo and like talking about his personality, like he's spunky, he's got a big like spicy personality, and then with like some cute pictures of him, that's usually enough to like catch people's eye and be like, "Oh, okay, he's like not as, gross as I thought that a skunk would be." And then reading a little bit about him and being able to connect people with these animals really has a lasting impact with people. I have people that I've seen at programs that they come back to us and they say, oh, like I just stumbled upon this on Facebook and I've never been out here before. And we've been around for about 25 years on this property. And a lot of people that are open to the public events just kind of stumble across our Facebook page or stumble across our Instagram. And it allows people to really know that we're here and know that we're a resource for them and a place to come out and visit as well.
That's really cool. Okay, this is kind of shifting gears just a little bit, but so we found a study done by Columbia Climate School, and it showed that ages 55 and up had a 14% less concern about environmental issues. So we just wanted to know how you incorporate like all age demographics, like ranging from like little kids all the way to seniors, and like what programs you use to do that.
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely try to collect as much information before we go out to a program as possible. So we ask about the age range of who we're going to be talking to. And the big thing that we try to bring to programs is we always want to meet people where they're at. So if we're going into a program that's a lot of like senior citizens, for example, we notoriously have senior citizens who request for us to not bring snakes out because they are terrified of snakes.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, No, don't worry about it. Like you'll like them, I promise. We usually try and respect people's boundaries and I'm not going to take a snake out and shove it in your face and say, "No, you'll love him." Like just give him a chance. Instead, we bring some other animals out that still might be a little bit uncomfortable for them. So maybe they're not crazy about like reptiles in general. So we'll bring out turtles and talk about them or opossums and talk about them. And people are usually willing to give them a shot. But the number of times I've pulled up to a program and there's people like walking past my van as I'm unloading and they're like, "You don't have any snakes, do you? Right, you don't have any of those snakes?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, it's okay." Like try and put them at ease. So we never want to come to a program thinking, this person who hates snakes is going to leave this program loving them. Like we want to come into a program thinking, okay, if you're afraid of this animal, maybe I can tell you some things that will make you slightly less afraid, maybe not in love with, but maybe at least indifferent about an animal. So that's always our goal with different age groups and different kind of demographics is going into it with as much knowledge as possible of kind of where they're at and then just kind of trying to move them slightly towards the middle or slightly towards the positive of how they feel about different animals.
Yeah.
And then I was also just wondering, this is also kind of shifting gears, but like, do you have a favorite experience like rescuing or impacting wildlife? And what advice can you give to our listeners as far as making a difference in their environment?
Yeah, okay. So, about animal rescues, we have a wonderful team of staff and volunteers that are always willing to go out and do rescues for the community, which is awesome. A lot of other rehab centers only have the ability to have the public bring animals to them, but we have a lot of dedicated people who care enough about the wildlife in our community that they will drive hours away from their own home to pick up animals and bring them to the center, which is wonderful. Me personally, I've honestly only ever come across some animals on my own that I have kind of brought in. So there was one situation where there was a goose that needed transport. Unfortunately, goose are another animal that a lot of people don't really care about
Yeah.
in central Ohio when they're, crossing the road. Some people do not stop for them. So we will sometimes get geese that are kind of injured in the roadway, and you'll have to contain them however you can. So a lot of us actually keep different kinds of sized containers in our cars. That way, if we ever do stumble across an animal that needs help, we have the ability to transport it to the hospital. So I've transported some geese, as well as some different like songbirds that unfortunately get hit on roadways as well. So it's really just always keeping an eye out for animals that are usually injured if you're driving around and unfortunately have collisions with cars, and getting them to the hospital as quickly as possible. But we've had some really crazy rescues for sure from our rescue team as well, but I was not a part of any of those. What was your other question about
Yeah, like what
the community?
advice could you give to our listeners about like impacting their environment?
Yeah, so impacts on our environment. Humans have a huge impact on our local wildlife. So, for example, talking about cars, animals do not know what roads are, right? If we are building a road through the middle of a forest, our turtles are not going to know to check both ways before they cross the street. So we can always do little things every single day of just being aware when we're driving, being aware when we're around our property, or if you're getting your trees trimmed, or if you're making these decisions about how you're going to affect things in and around your home, try and make decisions that are going to be beneficial for our wildlife. So easy things like not using rat or mouse poison. That kind of thing is going to work its way up the food chain. So you might think, oh, that little mouse is annoying. I'll just put out some poison, it'll eat it, and then it'll die. But then when an owl comes down and scoops up that mouse to eat, that then goes into the owl. That owl then comes to us, and we have to test it for poisoning, and we have to give it all, a bunch of fluids to flush out its system and things like that. When we're driving on like a country road or driving near waterways, just keeping an eye out for turtles that are crossing the road. And if there is a turtle in the middle of the road, and if it's safe for you to stop, pulling over, picking up that turtle, putting it in the direction that it's going, we can always just be on the lookout for making conscious decisions to help our wildlife. And we have such a negative impact already. So if you can make conscious decisions to make a positive impact, it's really going to go a long way.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. And I just have one last question because our
Hmm.
time is almost up. So I just want to know, you said that you used a lot of passionate people that are able to build your team and help
Mhm.
rescue animals. And my question relates to that. It's on how do you build this really passionate and like friendly community that's able to go out and do these lengths of things for animals and like use that to help your organization?
Yeah, great question. So, a lot of our volunteers that we have, they are with us because their day job is something completely different that they're not really passionate about. So some people have, hobbies that they do, and that's their kind of creative outlet or their passionate outlet. And wildlife is a really easy thing for people to connect with because what we do is animals all around us all the time that are right here in Ohio. So it's easy for people to be able to see these real life situations of an animal getting rescued, or maybe they called our info line in the past and they talked to somebody who was really empathetic and really kind towards them. And they said, I want to be a part of that. So it's all little connections every day that we all make as a staff and as a volunteer group, that we're constantly connecting with people and people are seeing what we're doing and seeing the outcome of animals getting released and seeing programs and meeting our animal ambassadors and coming to our property. And that just kind of sparks something in them that they want to be a part of it and they want to be, a positive impact on our world. And we're a great place in Central Ohio for people to have that kind of outlet of feeling like they're making a positive change.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering
Thank
all
you.
of our questions. It was really great talking to you.
Yeah, it was great to meet you guys. Thank you so much for your great questions and taking the time to talk to me. And feel free to reach out if you need anything else.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you. Okay.
And then just lastly, to our listeners, if you like this episode, make sure to follow our socials and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye.
Bye.